Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vistara webinar series. And today's webinar, which is Partner Transformation, a Fireside Chat with Avnet's Tonthat. My name is Aki Naito, and I'll be your host. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at Vistara, and thrilled to be here today. If this is your first time to the program, we are a SaaS solution for IT operations management. We are a mature platform with over 1,100 customers with devices under management on our platform with and through over 100 partners. We're based in San Jose, California, with operations in North America, Japan, and India. And we have broad integrations with a number of key technology players in the market. When we talk about lifecycle management, we are talking about everything that you need to do end-to-end to manage an IT infrastructure. Everything from monitoring and alert management, understanding the tickets, and being able to do proactive management of your systems like OS patch, and then being able to optimize your investment through reporting, asset management, and discovery. Now, today's event will be available on demand immediately at the end, and we invite you to share it with your team. And if you'd like to share now, you can safely do so by clicking on the share button and sending an email or posting to your network. At the conclusion, you're invited to view our upcoming events or any of our on-demand content available right here on this event channel. There'll be time for questions. Please use the Ask a Question button at any time throughout today's presentation, and we'll handle questions at the end of the presentation. Our agenda today is what is in it for you. We're going to talk about what a VAR transformation journey looks like and why it is that you want to move up this proverbial stack. We'll turn it over to John to talk about Avnet's transformation as a service, and then we'll jump into our discussion and Q&A with John. As a partner, why this VAR to cloud service provider transformation? Why move up the stack? The first and probably the biggest driver for this is the market opportunity. Right? Cloud is something that's been in the buzzword feed for quite a long time, but is certainly here to stay. The end user spend on cloud, according to Gartner, is $210 billion by 2016. Private cloud is reaching a point where over half of enterprises have some sort of deployment in place. And we see hybrid cloud as something that will be in that kind of adoption curve in the next few years. Profitability for partners. Software and services are certainly something that partners need to look at as hardware erosions continue to face challenges. Recurring revenue streams are also something that are important for partners to understand as they look at how to expand their businesses going forward. And really looking at the CapEx versus OpEx requirements for yourselves as well as our customers is going to be important as you look at keeping a sustainable business in the coming years. And finally, for your customers, as you develop your business, you want to understand what are the kinds of things that you can offer to your customers so that you are taking friction out of IT? How are you allowing them to focus on their core business? And really giving insights and visibility into their IT environment that they may not already be able to do themselves. What does that look like in terms of a roadmap? We believe that today, if what you sell is just hardware, if you look at selling management technology, the Vistara platform will give customers a self-service ability to do anything they need to from a lifecycle management perspective in IT operations. And that's going to be across anything in their heterogeneous environment. It's not going to be restricted to any one vendor. If you have the ability to manage an infrastructure for your customers, Vistara is an ideal platform for managed service providers. You may have seen that CRN just named a Star Tech Innovator in Managed Services for 2014. And building managed services can start, and I think John will talk more about something as simple as one piece of their infrastructure, a converged infrastructure like vSpecs, before you go into proposing a full-blown managed services across anything that they have. And then finally, as you look more into building and reselling public and private cloud services, how do you provide management on top of that as well? Now, ultimately, we want to help you as partners become a trusted advisor. Now, what are the state-of-the-art consultative services that you can provide? We talk about recurring revenue, increasing automation for partners is very important to lower your costs and also be able to provide that more agile service to your customers, and expanding that range of services. So I'd like to now turn it over to John Tonthat, who is our guest presenter today. John is the Director of Business Development and Marketing for EMC Converged Data Center Solutions, Data Solutions for Avnet Technology Solutions. John has held a number of sales and marketing positions in really helping partners drive that value to their customers through technology. Please welcome John Tonthat.
Well, thank you very much, Aki, and thanks for the opportunity to reach out to your partners and both potential and existing partners and share with you the message around Avnet, particularly the EMC business unit at Avnet, and how we're approaching transformation. So a little bit about Avnet for those who aren't aware. We're a publicly held $26 billion IT company. And we say IT company because from a legacy perspective, many folks sort of recognize us as a wholesale distribution company. But over the last few years, Avnet has transformed itself into a distribution solution company, accompanying not only hardware but a great deal of services. And a couple of facts about us. We're 117 on the Fortune 500 list, been in business for 91 years. We have a tremendous worldwide customer base, not only of partners, resellers, OEMs, integrators, and all of that we serve through a very disciplined and solutions-focused perspective, not only around verticals, but around go-to-markets as well. At the center of our converged infrastructure value proposition is the ability for Avnet to deliver several various forms of converged infrastructures through our Global Solution Center headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona. And the thing that if we could leave as a core value prop as we drive our people, our process, our marketing to a very customer-centric approach, and it's really our hallmark. So about 2 years ago, we co-developed a go-to-market strategy with EMC around converged infrastructures. And I say co-develop because ultimately EMC had a program called vSpecs, which is a reference architecture program that allows partners to quickly configure compute, network, and storage from a reference architecture perspective, but know that it is powered by an EMC proven solutions methodology, which is to say that the configurations have been validated by EMC engineering. And we participated early on in the program, and we were one of the first partners to bring out converged infrastructure solutions that were delivered from reference to sort of real at EMC World in 2012 and 2013. We demonstrated a variety of different solutions that we had deployed. One of them was a hardened data center in a mobile enclosure that could be dropped into some very hostile environments. The reason we did that was to illustrate to the EMC partner community that through vSpecs, the program, and the power that Avnet has in terms of delivering the reality of a converged infrastructure, we could together partner and accelerate our partners' adoption of converged infrastructures as a whole. Once we got going with that, though, we quickly realized and got a fair amount of demand from the partner base that said, hey, look, this is great that you guys are sort of the back-end process of delivering converged infrastructures, but how can you help us cross that chasm of going from a hardware reseller into a more cloud-centric solutions provider, and also help us in terms of migrating from a second or third platform perspective, a term that you hear quite a bit from IDC. So what we did was we developed internally a roadmap, right? So sort of think of this as the map that keeps us honest in terms of how we deliver partner programs. And at the very center of transformation as a service is sort of the orange, blue, and red pies. And what that represents is the core Avnet value proposition being services-led, solutions-focused, sales and marketing, global integration, logistics, and financing. And from an EMC perspective, what we thought was to layer onto the Avnet standard value prop the thing that EMC brings to market in both its alliances, its integration partners, its core products, and then build a methodology of consuming EMC products that would allow a partner to build a business practice, right? And for that, we refer to it as vSpecs for business. So it's really using the vSpecs lens to create a go-to-market around strategic business planning. And once we released this at EMC World 2014, it was widely received both by our partner base, but as well as along with EMC and our alliance partners as a very unique approach at helping partners sort of distill all of the noise in the market into a coherent strategic planning process. So we're very pleased that today TAS underpins for us the way that we help partners migrate. If you then think about the thing that I just shared about TAS transformation as a service, the wheel we refer to it, and then talk about how does a partner go from making money today from an IDC second platform perspective, and then plan for third platform being mobile social analytics, and consumed and provided from a cloud perspective. What are the sort of the steps that helps get you from sort of A to B and give you the time to plan appropriately for this transformation, right? The transformation exists not only at the end user, transformation exists within the reseller community, and for that matter, transformation exists within the vendor, in this instance, EMC themselves. And so the transformation as service methodology is that sort of critical success path towards the third platform. And we're really excited that it's been deeply embraced.
Well, thank you, John. And I think the transformation as a service story, as Vistara has been working with Avnet and EMC around the VSEX and the ecosystem partner program, is something that's really resonated with Vistara as well as some of the conversations that we have with folks who are partners is very much around those same lines. So let's jump into a discussion. In terms of the landscape, what is it that you're hearing from partners that you work with about what keeps them up at night? Is it around services portfolio, the cloud,
Sure.
enablement?
Yeah, I think the single biggest sort of nightmare scenario that we hear from our partners is how do I profit and how do I survive and how do I continue my business operations in a cloud world where my end users are coming to me and asking me to be more and more involved in not only the deployment of private clouds, but now requiring me to have tools and knowledge about gapping what it means to go from private to hybrid and public. There isn't a single day that goes by without some conversation with a partner asking a question, just how do you do it, and probably in it as much is not only how you do it, but how much time do they have to do it in. So that's what I would say is a very big top of mind discussion point at this time.
Yeah. And that's interesting because it sounds like one of the challenges for those more classical solution providers in having that cloud business model conversation is they don't even know what the how is. But what are some of the challenges that you see? There's training, there's knowledge.
Sure. Yeah.
Business model.
It's a good point. We and again, I speak largely based on the hundreds of partners that we serve through our EMC business unit. But I think two things really sort of come to mind when I think about the thing that solution providers sort of are struggling with today. Right. First and foremost is how to migrate from servers that have been virtualized into the thing that we all sort of talk about as IT as a service. And then the second piece is, and inherent in that comment is the knowledge and the tools and the vendor alignments that supports that capability. And then the second piece is how to do it in a way that that can be consumed easier, right? So if you sort of think about today, depending on the technology that our partners align to, each partner has a different. Each partner aligned to a manufacturer has a different approach, and I think there's a trend here of some unifying threads that help bring those different methodologies together. But at the core of it right now, I think it's still fairly early, and I think the partners are looking for consolidation from a methodology perspective.
Are these challenges that partners inherently know they're facing, or are customers pushing them on this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that there's sort of when we look at our ecosystem of partners, right? There's sort of the third breakdown. I think that there's a third that call on the set of customers, whether it be mid-market or low to mid-enterprise, that are being challenged by their end users and challenged in a way of either help us solve for this challenge, or candidly, we'll find someone who will. And then there's the third that is sort of much more progressive, are thinking through and thinking ahead and having not only the vendor relationships, but the investments necessary to answer those questions. And then candidly, there's a third that are struggling, just downright struggling with how to answer those questions.
Okay. So we talk about cloud and managed services often. What are some of those benefits that they would get out of exploring those possibilities?
Right. I think from let's sort of talk both cloud and managed services, and so let's break open those two pieces a little bit. I think an easier way to think about how to convert hardware sales into the thing that end users are asking for from a managed services perspective. I think there's a fair amount of existing methodologies and capabilities that partners can develop managed services and or resell managed services. I think that part of the market is maturing. I think that the question around cloud services is a great deal more complex, right? Because then the question becomes, it's not how do I get it to the cloud? It is what do I do with it once it's in the cloud, right? So the conversation around management, the conversation around productivity, the conversation on utilization, and extracting the value that exists within the data in the cloud. I think that is a much more challenging conversation that we as an industry overall are embracing. So I see a lot of effort. I see a lot of discussion, both from a vendor perspective, but certainly from a partner community perspective, that cloud services is really a cloud service value extraction, to put a fine point, is really the thing that's driving a lot of conversations.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's a great transition to how does Avnet and vSpecs help partners be successful with extracting that value from cloud service.
So if you sort of think about the way that Avnet, particularly Avnet and EMC and the vSpecs program looks at the migration of IT as a service, sort of the first tier would be to deploy private clouds. And in that model, that private cloud would be in the form of some sort of converged infrastructure, whether it be vSpecs or at this present time VCE or vBlocks or converged infrastructures as a whole. Then the discussion sort of becomes once you have an operating IT as a service private cloud, how do you then burst out as necessary and optimize your workload management to hybrid clouds? And then last but certainly not least, depending on trying to rein in shadow IT and or getting more programmatic in terms of your management approach, to then punch out to the public cloud. And from our current roadmap, I think we can demonstrate to our partners a very clear path to success around deploying private clouds, particularly with converged infrastructures, as we develop the go-to-market along with EMC on how to migrate to the hybrid cloud, but do it with a level of integrity in the process of not only the business proposition of cloud computing. And while that comment seems a bit nuanced, it's, I think the difficulty is once it's in private, how do you very, very seamlessly move the workloads back and forth from private to hybrid, public, and when necessary to pull it back. I think that over the next 12 to 18 months, the story around the tools, the methodologies around private to hybrid expansion. And then what we're actually seeing is a fair amount of time, effort, and interest in terms of pulling workloads from private clouds back into a hybrid environment. And working along with EMC, we have a sort of a defined path on how partners can use not only EMC tools, products, but are enabled by Avnet and our services and our service capabilities is one approach. I think when we look at the wheel or the thing that I refer to as transformation as a service in the wheel, that accounts for a fair amount of the goods, services, both hardware and services that can be consumed by a partner. And the assembly line, by the way, is a concept that we came up with that said, if you are at sort of step 1 and you need to get to step 5 in terms of the transformation, what are the step-by-step processes that a partner has to develop and gain competencies to get across that particular business transformation piece. And so for us, assembly line and transformation service is sort of two integrated approach of then delivering Avnet services and EMC goods and services as well.
So I think that's something that we hear a lot, that there is a knowledge, expertise, skills gap as partners who are traditionally in more of a hardware space are trying to wrap their heads around all these new concepts and kind of consumption models. Maybe the assembly line would be a good place to show a tangible example of, what does that roadmap maybe look like?
Right. So if you sort of think about the way that the London Tube map was originally designed, you know that if you get on at one point and you need to transit to another part of the city, there are different stops and there are different subway lines that you have to crisscross to get from destination A to destination B. In much the same way that we took that concept and we integrated it into a strategic business planning process, both from a hardware build perspective, in the case of VSpecs and the services we deliver around design, build, deploy, converged infrastructures, to the business side of delivering converged infrastructures, and how we engage, enable, and extend those capabilities across both, again, Avnet and EMC. So really the assembly line is just a methodology and approach to make the consumption of that enablement easier to track and to consume.
Well, can you talk about a couple of examples of partners that you've worked with who are success stories that you've seen in the recent past?
You bet. So one of the ways that we measure success from a converged infrastructure, which for us is the entree to private cloud computing, is how partners can consume the concept of VSpecs reference architectures and then be able to solve complex business problems, right? And then how to use Avnet as a catalyst to help them solve that. Over the last year or so, we've deployed now several different solutions in healthcare environments where the converged infrastructure was tuned for certain healthcare applications, and we were the folks who helped the partner build and deploy that infrastructure. And that example sort of comes to mind because at the very outset of the conversation between the partner and that regional hospital was the question of how do I get my application served within a set of business and IT service levels, and how do I do it with, in some instance, some existing gear, and in some instances with the latest technology from EMC. And if you sort of take a step back, I would say to you that even 18 months ago, that conversation would have been difficult for a partner to engage in, because it's not only the expertise around the hardware, the expertise around the integration, the expertise around the healthcare applications, which in this instance the partner had, but how do you pull all that together? We now see on any given day and occurrence more partners calling us into helping them design solutions. And I would say to you that from a pipeline perspective, our pipeline around specific solutions-based converged infrastructures has literally quadrupled over the last 4 quarters or so. So that tells us a couple of things, right? That tells us that partners are looking at different ways of solving problems with converged infrastructures. Partners are then extending their capability around their application stack, and combining with Avnet are able to deploy solutions. There's several, not several, there are probably better half of a dozen really call out case studies that we can share with you that shows how partners are now leveraging us to accomplish those goals. So we're very, very excited with the change that we see in the marketplace.
That's great. It sounds like you named a couple of key characteristics of this partner that made them successful with their expertise in hardware integration in that particular industry, applications. Are there other best practices for solution providers that you see across the partners you've seen success with?
Yeah, I would say, and again, I can note that my answer is going to be a little skewed towards EMC because that's the business that we serve, and it's a little bit skewed around the ecosystem vendors that EMC has in terms of problem solutioning. That said, though, I think there's 3 very key attributes, right, that a partner has to have. A deep understanding of virtualization, right? I think that's sort of table stakes today. I think that the second piece is a deep competency around an application stack, whether that application stack be Microsoft or Oracle or some other application stack. But when you combine virtualization with application expertise, and then you enhance it with the way computing is now served from a converged infrastructure perspective, I think for us that's the perfect trifecta that we see. And partners who carry those attributes are a great deal more successful than ones that aren't, really.
Do you see them using those attributes to differentiate themselves? How does that?
Yeah, there's no question. I would say that there's a significant differentiation in the market, because where you have partners who can really understand and leverage all of the capabilities that virtualization allows, and then you leverage the piece around the application stack, the partners effectively become trusted advisors. Right? I think that's how this conversation sort of started. And then those platforms allow the partner to then extend the set of skills, services, scope of work, therefore opportunity, well past what virtualization allows you to do. So, take the case of Vistara. If you have a really deep virtualization practice, and with the help of, in this instance, VMware, and incorporating VMware, the vRealize suite, into a competency-based application program, combine that with Vistara would be an extraordinarily powerful platform, right? Because then the partner can walk in and address essentially IT as a service, and do it with a high degree of competency. So,
okay. So let's look at a roadmap for partners.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a hardware reseller today, what are kind of the few things that they can do today to get them started, right? Because there's going to be a kind of a stepwise process to get to the kinds of partners we
right.
talked about.
I think there are three critical success sort of patterns that would stand in the way of any transformation. The first one being the partner themselves, and an honest conversation and assessment around their capability and their desire to change, right? And their desire to serve their customers in the way that customers now want to be served, which is from a cloud computing perspective. The second piece, and I think this is extraordinarily important, and it's sort of a plug for EMC, is to think about the vendor that you align with. Does the vendor have the portfolio of products, solutions, ecosystem, and the ability to execute? I think is also very important in the vendor evaluation perspective. And then last but certainly not least is how is the partner empowered, emboldened, accelerated, choose verb of choice, but who is standing behind that partner to really help drive that enablement piece? And in many instances, not all, but in many instances, that's distribution, right? That is solutions distribution at its core value prop. So, just to recap, first and foremost, I think an internal assessment of skills, capabilities, desire. Second piece is look at the vendor ecosystem. Obviously, I'm biased, but there are other vendor ecosystems out there that allows that partner to make that migration because the vendor has really invested into the technology curve. And then certainly, last but not least, I would say challenge your channel partner, whether it be distribution or otherwise, to how can they help the partner through an enablement activity, and enablement, by the way, by form of training. How can that channel partner help with demand gen, locating white space, right? So once you're train enabled, how do you go find net new customers? And then is that partner ready to sort of jump into the foxhole with you and help go close deals? I think that's a very key element in terms of a successful partnership.
No, those are great. If that was the 101, is there a 201 for folks who are further along?
Right. So, if you think about sort of the baseline of where you're at, I would say that today we sort of think of it from a 201 concept, are amazingly hyper-focused at looking at tool sets and methodologies that look at how do you move workloads between private, hybrid, and public clouds. And I think that term, even though I use it, is thrown around a little bit loosely because it's extraordinarily complex, right? It's just extraordinary. Within that statement, there's just literally hours, thousands of hours of work streams that is necessary to architect that solution. What I would say to partners as a whole is look at how you get sort of your handle around IT as a service, and look at once you've got that sort of cold, then look at how to provide IT as a service across the cloud platforms. And we're happy to share, for those who are interested, we're working very aggressively with EMC to look at how to deploy those solution sets in 2015. So I'm pretty excited about that.
That's great. Well, let's jump into Q&A. The first one we have is, how do VARs make money in this cloud space?
Right. I think there's I think that question has changed a bit over the last 24 to 36 months, where I think just that, right, 24, 36 months ago, the conversation was, how can I resell perhaps somebody else's cloud services? And that has very, very quickly evolved to how can I interject myself in a way that I don't get sort of disintermediated, right? And if you think about not wanting to be left out in the cold, and how do you still stay in the sort of the profit cycle, then the question very quickly comes to how do you get your end users to the cloud in a way that you offer some amount of control, whether that control is mandated by the end users, IT and business requirements, or in some instances, right, candidly, by you, the partner, right? So then the question is, can you safely deploy private hybrid? And then the piece around, and I touched upon this a little bit earlier, and that is, it's fine once we sort of get our workloads to the clouds, and there's an extraordinary amount of data that now sits out there. How do you extract that value, right, out of the data that sits there? And I think that the conversation around, a great deal of conversation, I should say, sits around analytics and how you use analytics both to gain efficiencies from your current business and IT processes, and then from a marketing perspective, how do you help your end users extract the value of marketing data that sits with the information that exists out there. So on one hand, I would say it's a bit tactical, right? You make money still today by selling gear, by helping to manage, helping the provision, and then the second part of that conversation is the goods and services required to manage that across the different platforms. And certainly last, and I think this is what the third platform talks a great deal about, is how do you extract value? And that value that value proposition changes depending on sort of the size of the end user.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually a good start to the other question we have here, that is, what are the tangible benefits to end customers that I can talk about around cloud services?
Right. I think end customers, and particularly end customers today, there's a great deal of discussion around regular IT and then shadow IT. And so if you sort of think about how shadow IT came about, it is because the business had requirements that IT couldn't very quickly solve for and deliver. And so if you think of it from that perspective, then the thing that business IT users want is speed, flexibility, and efficiency, right? And the cloud, in many instances, or well-prescripted cloud in many instances, allows for end users to extract that value. However, I think that in order to get to the end point of value extraction and efficiency is sort of the methodology that gets you there. And so I think end users, sort of the way that you and I are today, we solve for, we will sort of, as professionals, we'll solve for the desires and the needs we need. That doesn't change whether or not it's us as individuals or us as, in this instance, the business unit inside the company that demands efficiency and flexibility. And basically that's what we're all sort of fishing for and trying to solve for.
Thanks, John. One last question. Where can I see the assembly line and the TAS circle?
Great. So it is on our, if you go to the Avnet TS Americas website and you click onto the EMC webpage, there's an entire section dedicated to transformation as a service. And there's a great deal of information on our site there. You can also reach out to us and attend our transformation as a service enablement seminars, and we're going to be running those quarterly over 2015, at a minimum quarterly over 2015. And so if you want to experience how transformation as a service works and how the assembly line can help you change the business, feel free to reach out to me directly. We'd love to add you to the invite list for the next series of enablement activities.
Great. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Now, the slides will also be posted on both the Bright Talk and the Vistara sites, and check out our blog. We'll have all of these links and more information from John for you in the coming days. So thank you, everyone, for attending, and have a great day.
Thank you.